So I thought I'd finished my conversion of the LEDs on my Jaguar XJC, and yeah, and I tested all the lights, and they were all working absolutely fine. And then I took it out. Well, I had to wait for the weather to get nice, but I took it out, and then I noticed a few anomalies that were happening, just weird stuff. And I think this is what happens when you do a conversion like this. There is a certain amount of messing around. But anyway, one of them was the ammeter gauge. The ignition was off and I turned the lights on, all the dashboard lights lit up perfectly. And that's what I thought, oh, fantastic, I've done it. Anyway, I noticed then when the ignition went on, the ammeter light went off. When the lights were on, the ammeter gauge light went off, which was peculiar. And then when I turned the lights, with the ignition on, turned the lights off, the ammeter gauge light came on. So completely opposite to what you'd expect. So I thought this was a bit, well, it baffled me a bit. But anyway, and then when I was driving it down the road, I noticed that the temperature gauge was actually at max, at hot. Which worried me a little bit, and so I had to sort of pull over quickly. And then luckily I had my trusty temperature gauge in the car, so I checked the engine, and the engine was fine. So that stopped that that I didn't overheat the car, which was good news. Anyway, so I gave it a bit of thought, and then anyway it occurred to me that maybe the ammeter gauge, because it's quite old, was backfeeding the positive and confusing the LED, which, because the LED is, the nature of it is what it is, but the low voltage, etc. When the standard bulb was in it, you didn't notice it. So, and the bulb wouldn't light up. So I thought, well, what I could do is I could pull the bulb out of the gauge, and then I can check to see, I can check to see whether or not the bulb then works normally outside the gauge, just by holding it onto, part of the metal side of it in order to ground it. And it did, and it worked absolutely fine. So what I did then is I actually decided to give the bulb a separate separate ground wire. So I got a wire, attached it to the outside of the body, put a bit of insulation tape around it, and put it in the back of the gauge. And then I connected the earth strap to the ground of the oil temperature, the oil pressure gauge, which is immediately above the ammeter gauge. And then that worked fine, absolutely fine. And then the next stage was then, to look at the temperature gauge to see why it was suddenly reading hot. Anyway, because I thought maybe I'd knocked a wire or whatever, but that seemed to now work fine as well. So what I think has happened is the ammeter was backfeeding the positive into the lighting circuit, because all the bulbs are behind the dash are all daisy chained together. It was then throwing the temperature gauge out. Anyway, so really happy, managed to fix that problem. The second problem I had, which was slightly more complicated, was that when I changed the flasher unit, or the flasher relay, to an LED flasher relay, and changed all the bulbs to LEDs, the outside of the car, so when I'm turning left or right, putting the hazards on or whatever, that they were all working absolutely fine. I wasn't getting any hyper flashing, and I wasn't having any issues there. The problem I was having is that the repeaters on the inside of the car, when I was turning left or right, both of them were flashing. So I did a bit of investigating into this and looking at the wiring diagram. And even though when you use the indicator stalk, it basically makes the live circuit of the indicators. So you turn to, say, left. You make that circuit. It sends the live to both the front and rear on the left side of the circuit, and it starts flashing. the live comes through the flash unit before it gets to the indicator stalk. So that's all. That was all fairly self-explanatory, and it's quite easy to work out. But then because this the flasher relay has actually 4 connectors on it. One of the connectors is a ground that goes, which is a common ground that goes to the repeaters. I think I've got this right. It goes to the repeaters. So when you make that circuit, what it does is it also then sends, because when it draws current through that side, so it will then either go down the left side or the right side of the circuit, and the repeater will start flashing. Now, when I spoke to a few sort of experts on this, apparently this is all done through lots of diodes and other bits and pieces, which I didn't really quite understand. But the long and the short is, I've now got to replace the LED flasher relay with the old standard relay, and then I'm now going to have to put in a ballast resistor on each circuit. Now, the lucky thing is I only have to put one in on each side. And essentially I'll put that through the positive and the ground behind one of the indicator housings. So I don't really want to do it on the back, because when I take those lights out, there is you've got the fuel tank right there. So I think I'm going to do it on the front. And the reason you need to do it behind, and not behind the dashboard, is these things get extremely hot. And according to, if you've got your hazards on, they could get up to well over 100 degrees. So you don't want to have it anywhere near any fabrics or wires or anything like that. And it wants to be attached to a piece of steel in order to dissipate the heat. So I think that's what I'm going to do. It's going to have a look. I don't know where I'm going to mount them yet, but I'm going to have a look, and I'll see if I can show you how I've done it once I've got to that stage. So yeah, so the first thing I've got to do is I've got to put the dash back together. I've still got some of the gauges out. Yeah, so I'm going to put the dash back together, put the old flasher relay back in, and really go from there. And then I'll try and figure out how I'm going to put these ballast resistors in. So this is the ballast resistor that I need to put into the circuit, and I've got my trusted Bradley McLean book of wiring diagrams. I've already got the page marked out. So if you see here, you can see what I mean by the common wire for the repeaters. And if you look, you can see that this is the live that comes out of the flasher unit, flasher relay, comes down into the indicator stalk. So then you could either left or right, and it goes up, and you'll see it. Then it connects into the circuit, which then leads to either side of the indicator. Then this one, it will draw current through the flasher relay. I'm assuming it's part of the ground or live. I'm not quite entirely sure, but it will then pulse these, which will then connect into either side, you will see. So depending on which indicator will depend on whether the current runs this way or that way, making these lights work. That's the problem. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put, I've changed, as I said, I've put all of the old original flasher relay into the car now. I've reassembled it. All of the bulbs in the dashboard are now LEDs. You'll see on this diagram here, basically all the lights are all daisy chained together, which is what was giving me with all separate earths, which is what was giving me the problem before. Anyway, so what I've got here is I've got a common ground, which is the wire, which is the black wire, and then GR, which you'll see over here, is green and red. So the green and red cable is my indicator positive. So I need to connect my ballast resistor between the ground and the green with the red stripe. So I'm going to show you now. I've taken the wheel off the car, and my intention, and you will see that there is the back of the indicator assembly and side light assembly. That is the ground wire there. And now one of these cables, which I will get to in a minute, is the green with a red stripe. So we'll discover which one that is. So my intention, I think, is to connect that, put that on there. Possibly the other side, to stop it getting, you know, when you jet wash the car or whatever. Keep it nice tucked out the way, and I'll just bolt that to there somehow. So you can't really see, but yeah, so the intention is to bolt that on there, which I think will be a nice installation. So yeah, I'm going to carry on and get that done now. Okay, so I've only got one hooked up, but it is working as it should. Slight anomaly, but equally, I've only done one side so far, so I'll have to do the other side before I completely write it off. So now, only one repeater is working, which is good news. But if you notice, slightly different, not really quite right, is I'm actually indicating left. So I'm hoping maybe, I mean, it looks like I've just put the wires on the wrong way around. So I'm going to now get the one in on the offside, so the driver's side, sorted out. And then I won't record it again, but I will then show you once I've done it what the result is. Okay, so I've now got the ballast resistors on both sides, and it's still not working correctly. So I'm now indicating right, and the right flashes are working. However, on the dash, the left repeater is on. Then if I turn to indicate left, the left repeater is on. As you can see that. However, it's now going very slowly when I indicate left. When I turn it both off, the left repeater light remains on and doesn't actually go out. And then also when I hit the hazards, everything flashes as they normally would. And both repeaters are coming on. So I'm not quite sure what's happened, how I've wired them in. I'll put the ballast resistor on the other side. Then we've got into the earth side of the bulb, and then into the positive side of the same bulb. I've given that problem with the repeaters and the slow indicator a bit of thought now, and I think actually what I've decided to do is I'm going to take the ballast resistors out of the system, and I'm going to reinstall the LED flasher unit. And then I am going to, I think I'm going to bypass the common on the repeaters and put in work out which one is the live from the indicator circuit, and I'll show you in the diagram in a sec. But and then put in a common earth in, and I think that might work. The only problem is I might have to put a relay in order to get the hazards to work. But yeah, I think it's now actually back to square one, because the reason being is that when I had the LED flasher unit or flasher relay in the car, the external lights all worked fine. It was just the internal, and it was obviously backfeeding somehow. So I'm going to show you now the wiring diagram, and so you'll be able to see what I mean by that. Okay, so here we have the wiring diagram, and here are the repeaters. So what I am actually going to do is where this common is between the two, I'm actually going to find that cable, which is LGN. So that is light, green, and brown cable. I'm going to find that, and I'm going to disconnect that behind the dashboard, and then I'm going to put in a ground there. Now I think what will happen is, if you see where we've got the GW, so the GW connects straight in to the indicator circuit on this side. So I think when the indicators are live, they're going to come through, the positive will come through here, and not only will it go and feed the front and rear indicators themselves, but if I put a ground on there, it will then back feed this one, and then that should flash at the same time. Now the only problem with that is that I have a feeling, which I just need to check. So I think it's going to be okay, because I think when the hazards go on, it activates this circuit anyway. So I think it will be okay, because this circuit is purely for the repeaters, but I just need to double check that. So we'll check that whilst we're in the car, but I think that's what's going to fix the problem. So just bypass this cable, go to make a separate ground for each one, and then it should hopefully work. Right, I think I sorted it out. So if I just demonstrate it to you, let's get that out of the way. If I then put the hazards on, we're now getting the left and the right wire blinking. If I now turn that off, we're indicating right, the right one's blinking, and left, the left one's blinking. So now it looks like that's all sorted out. So what I did was I took the white, the red, and the green wire. That is, weirdly, they're the other way around, oddly enough now. So this wire operates the right side and vice versa. So I've just basically I've cut the common, which is this one. Don't need that now. And then, so this is now back feeding from the right side indicator circuit. And now I've taken then a common ground, and I've connected it to this stud here, which is the to mount the steering column. So that seems to all work. So now all I've got to do is just tape it all up, make it all look a bit neat, and then I can put the dash back together. Okay, so I know there's a bit of reflection going on here, but you can get the general idea. Put the dash back together now. So if I turn the lights on, all the lights come on. You see, all the lights are on. And we got high beam, off, high beam, which is working. Hazards, finally the hazards are working. ignition light and oil light indicator is now indicating right, and it's now indicating left and blinking. So it's finally done. Hurrah. So very happy with that indeed. So here we have it, the finished article. I've just taken it out to see what the lights look like out the road. They might have, the front lights probably need a bit of adjustment, but just a completely different thing altogether. I'm so pleased with it. Yes, it's been quite tricky, quite complicated to get them all to work properly, but the difference in lighting. So it's just made this car that's now 50 years old. Well, it's not quite 50 years old. Is it 50? Yeah, so this car that's like, 1977 when this car was made, which actually I think makes it one of the very last XJCs that they produced. It just means it's now keeps up with modern traffic, modern conditions, holds its own.